Hey everybody, welcome to Guitars and Music. I hope you'll consider subscribing. I hope you'll watch my original song upload. And also I did a tribute to Robert Trower, Take Two. If you watch one of the two, I hope you'll watch Take Two. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Fender Acousatonic guitar. I haven't been doing that many reviews, and I don't, even though they're the things I've done that people seem to watch the most, I don't know. I'm not that set up for really good reviews, but I am going to continue to talk about gear that I know. And I've never had a Fender Acousatonic guitar, but I played one a couple times, but I have had a Taylor T5Z for about a year, and I played a Godin A6 for maybe 2 years pretty regularly, maybe once or twice a week. And so I'm pretty familiar with hybrid guitars, and I thought maybe I could add a little bit to the conversation. I know Fender released the Acousatonic, was it the Jazzmaster or the Jaguar? But I don't know. They released one last week, and it was all over the internet, and of course, and as many people reviewed it, others people reviewed the reviews, so everybody was talking about it. But I feel like I can contribute to the discussion because I do know hybrid guitars pretty well. I played a Godin A6 for a couple years on a regular basis. And I think they're all those guitars have their strengths and weaknesses, but Fender, Taylor, and Godin all make good guitars. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the hybrid guitar, just in general. I know one comment, was it Rhett Shull? I like his channel. He's an awesome guitarist, very tasteful guitar player with a lot of creativity. But I think it was his channel. Somebody said the hybrid guitar was a solution in search of a problem. In other words, there's no real point to getting one. And if you just want to play acoustic, and maybe have an electric and play an electric. And I get that. And I think that's the takeaway ultimately I would have of hybrid guitars is they're not as good as an acoustic, and they're not as good as an electric. So what's the point? But I do think the hybrid guitar is trying to address a real need for live gigging musicians that maybe, and particularly I would say that aren't playing in a band. I think if you're playing in a band on a stage area where you can have a couple guitars and you also have a couple other players, that's one thing. I also think if you're doing a solo singer-songwriter thing, you'd probably want some kind of an acoustic guitar, unless you're doing maybe something jazzy or something, but mostly you're going to want, I would assume, an acoustic guitar. But the reason I think the hybrid guitar did kind of meet a need in some ways, there was a problem, and it's one that I was very familiar with, which was playing in a duo or something like a duo or maybe a trio, which was basically an acoustic group. And we did, Seals and Crofts and things like that. We played all the time. But we also did a lot of stuff where I wanted to play lead. And so we did like Eagles, or one song I would mention that just kind of is an example of a song where you would want to play electric and acoustic within the same song was Sweet Melissa by the Allman Brothers. That was always, I used to be in a group called the Silverbird Duo about 10 years ago. Unfortunately, the guy passed away. But that was probably one of our best songs, and that was we had two Martin guitars up there, and we would take that ending. And Bob was a very creative player. Some people just like tape loop, those last chords, but he would just let it evolve and just go big and then down, and I would play leads, and we did, that was one of our best songs. Not that it's that complicated a song, but we just played it really well. But that was a song where you couldn't change guitars. Within that song, you want to be able to play, unless you're just doing a strictly acoustic version, but within that song, you want to be able to play acoustic and electric, at least the way we did it. We wanted to end with a really nice kind of southern rock guitar solo. But we certainly can't sacrifice the acoustic heart of the song. So that, among many other examples, but that would be a song where to me the Godin A6 or the Taylor T5 or the Fender Acousatonic starts to look attractive because you think, well, I've kind of got an acoustic and I can play electric. and it's within one song. It's not like you don't want. It's not like you can't change guitars in between songs. That's one thing. But the need for me was always, when I was playing an acoustic oriented song, which a lot of our stuff was, but music that would have nice rock electric leads in it, or even country electric leads. So the way I used to do that in the Silverbird Duo, I've actually got a video about it, is I used a Seymour Duncan Soundhole Woody pickup in my Martin HD28 guitar. And the critical thing with the Seymour Duncan pickup is like all those Soundhole pickups, I think, are electromagnetic. So they are comparable to an electric guitar pickup in that they'll take a distortion pedal. If you try to run a Taylor Expression System 2 or any piezo type pickup through a distortion pedal, it just doesn't not sound good. It sounds horrible. I mean, it's not even like, oh, the mids are a little off, I think I need a fainting couch. It's like it sounds horrible. It's an unusable, wholly terrible sound. So but if you use an electromagnetic pickup in an acoustic guitar sound hole, then your problem is to an extent solved. So I would take a Big Muff distortion pedal and I would use that Martin HD28, and then we would play a lot of rock, especially towards the end of the evening when the dinner was put away, and we'd have people dancing, and we do a lot of rock stuff like Hey Joe, and I'd use that Martin guitar, and you'd be surprised with a Big Muff pedal and some reverb, and even just playing it through an acoustic amplifier. I have the Roland AC60, and I still think that's one of the best acoustic amps. You'd be surprised at how much that thing rocked with the Big Muff distortion pedal. Now, the problem with that is, like, we would do, like, an example of a song we might do, and just like classic rock style, would be like Hey Joe, and we would really rock that out. The thing about Hey Joe is, though, you can play that kind of with acoustic guitar chords. So if we tried to do a song like Brown Sugar or something where you wanted something that was a little more electric guitar in nature, particularly if you wanted to play a lot of bar chords, that Martin guitar got old quick. So after, I was never really all the way satisfied, but looking back on it, that I think was the best setup for a duo, was a really nice acoustic guitar playing through a sound hole pickup, not a piezo. Don't try to use one of these onboard Expression System 2s or some of these under saddle pickups. If you want to play rock with an acoustic sound, get yourself a good sound hole pickup, which are like, all of $50 compared to some of these systems. And they sound pretty good. I also ran it through LR Baggs Paracoustic DI, which I think converted the signal to an active signal and made it a very, it filled it out. It just kind of gave it more, a fuller tone. But those sound hole pickups, and they've got a little bit of a electronic harmonic distortion fuzz. It sounds very Keith Richardsy on the acoustic guitar. You get that kind of wild horse sound because they've got a kind of buzz to it. But I think, looking back on it, that was the best setup. But to finish the story, I was never, I was always thinking, well, I want some. I saw these hybrid guitars. I thought, wow, that'd be great. I could play acoustic and electric all at the same time. So one day I bit the bullet and I bought a brand new Taylor T5Z. Now that thing's expensive, and with all due credit to Taylor, it's an excellent guitar. Mine was Koa. It looked like a work of art. It was one of the prettiest guitars I've ever owned. The neck was beautiful, but it was $3,000, and I never, when I would try to play acoustic, like we'd be doing like Peaceful Easy Feeling or something like that, the acoustic never sounded that good. So I switched to a Godin A6, which was a lot cheaper. I think I got one used for a little over $500. And I had that one for quite a while, but it still, I would say the same thing. I almost got used to it. I stopped thinking about it, but it never really sounded that great as an acoustic guitar. Now, the other thing I will say is that when you're in a bar, I was playing a lot in a bar where no one pays attention, and there's almost an art to being unobtrusive. In fact, I don't want to do that anymore. I've been uploading original song videos. I've been playing the backing tracks, which is something I've never done, and I've decided in a lot of ways it's more fulfilling and pushes me as a musician a lot more than sitting there playing in those restaurants all the time for unappreciative people or whatever. But we used to play, and and you know, I just put up with the Godin because, you know, people weren't listening that much, and people would say it sounded good. So, and it didn't I don't think it sounded bad. But the thing about all those guitars, and I'm assuming this about the Acousatonic, that one of the issues that everyone discusses is should you put electric guitar strings on it or acoustic guitar strings on it? My take is, and what I did is I put acoustic guitar strings on it because the default position on a hybrid guitar to me is it's an acoustic guitar first. Because I think if you wanted an electric guitar first, why would you really get a hybrid guitar? You're probably playing electric most of the night, and if you just want a little bit of acoustic for their pedals or something you could use. So if to me the sort of default position for a hybrid guitar is it's a kind of acoustic that can play electric. But I actually think that's where the problem is sometimes. All three of those guitars that I've had two of the three big hybrid guitars, and I played the Acousatonic, which I would say is comparable. I think the Godin might have been as good as any of them. But the problem that all of them have is that they're kind of set up like electric guitars, but then they're kind of, you play them first and foremost as an acoustic guitar. You put acoustic guitar strings on there. I think all three of them had what was like an acoustic guitar bridge with bridge pins, instead of like some kind of through the body pickup or string system. And they were all good, but and my Taylor T5 came with electric guitar strings on it, and that to me, because I've got great electric guitars. I mean, my electric guitars are awesome, so I don't really need a Taylor T5 to play hard rock on an electric guitar or blues or something. I was looking for an acoustic guitar which could handle electric lead soloing. And I assume that I'm probably like a lot of people out there that are looking at a hybrid guitar option. You're not an electric guitar player that wants a hybrid guitar because you want to play an acoustic on a song. That's at that if you're playing electric all night, I feel like that's not worth it to you. However, if you're in a little duo and you're playing a lot of music that mixes electric and acoustic, then you might start looking at the hybrid guitar. But to me, a hybrid guitar is something that's going to tend to be more attractive to an acoustic guitar player that wants to play some electric than the other way around. And like I said, the problem was that thing never sounded all that great acoustically. I think the electric sounded all right, but still, when you put acoustic guitar strings on it, it kind of cuts out from the ring some. But again, most of the time, I wouldn't use a really hybrid guitar in like a really nice gig. I bought it as a practical matter to play in bars and restaurants where people weren't really listening. I don't think I would have probably ever used it in some kind of fancy gig where, I sort of saw it as a tool to get through. And that was one not criticism, but that was one problem I had with the Taylor T5. It was almost too nice a guitar. And I don't want to, if I buy a hybrid guitar, I'm buying something that kind of meets a need, and I have the expectation that it's probably not going to be that great at it, but it'll do the job of these two things, playing electric and acoustic. And so I guess I decided I don't really need this beautiful fancy Koa $3,000 guitar when I've got a Martin acoustic guitar that's beautiful, and I've got some of these awesome Fenders that I love so much. So I think if you buy a hybrid guitar, they do have a role, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on one because to me, you're buying a tool that meets a need. and it's going to be tends to be a meeting a need in places where the sound isn't all that important. You know, I know people, we have the tone snobs, and I like good tone too, but you know, and a lot of times you're just playing and people just want to hear some good music and play, and you know, they're not sitting there obsessing about the EQ. They just want it to sound pretty good, and I think a hybrid guitar can kind of get you there. However, I ended up even selling that Godin A6, which I think was the best of the three alternatives. First of all, it worked really well, and I thought it sounded good, but also it was so much less money. At least I bought a used one, and I picked up a used one. I don't know what they're running for new, but it was so much less. And I finally decided, you know, I'm not going to spend the money that it costs for for like what they want for one of these Acousatonics. I could buy like a really nice Fender Strat or a brand new Taylor acoustic or a nice Martin, you know, and it's not worth the money to me to have what is essentially kind of a makeshift tool to kind of get you through a gig. That's not something where you need like a really high-end instrument, in my opinion. That if there's any example of a time where you can kind of take a cheap route, that's it. Get something that stays in tune and plays well. However, my story with the hybrid guitar kind of ended. I just we were doing a lot of Eagles and stuff like that, Tequila Sunrise, and I was in a little duo. We had super good vocals, and we did like Lion Eyes and The Boxer, Simon and Garfunkel, and we also did rock, like we did Southbound. But I finally went back to using my Martin with the sound hole pickup, and it had been a while since I'd used that setup, and which was my old Silverbird Duo setup, and I was just surprised how much that Martin just sounds so good. It threw that Seymour Duncan Woody sound hole pickup into a paracoustic DI and then into acoustic amp, and you can mic the amp, I guess. I never liked running out of the back. I always thought I don't know, people do it, but I never, sometimes it would work and it wouldn't. I never could figure it out, so I just mic'd it. But it just had that Martin ambience. You know, I think it sounds better than a piezo pickup, and I never had to cut into my beautiful Martin guitar. It still doesn't have any pickups in it. So that was, to me, a really, I went back to the Martin, and I think it sounds better, and I can play leads on it. The one thing I do miss is like playing Brown Sugar or something, because that's kind of hard on the Martin. But I can play in the middle and even upper positions, some pretty good lead solos on that Martin, and I kick the Big Muff in. And if you have a electromagnetic pickup, it'll work. So I think the hybrids have a role, but I would never spend a lot of money on one. That Godin A6, or get a used one, I guess, but like buying it as some kind of really special piece for your collection or something, I just don't see it, but others might have a different view. But that's my take. Well, thank you. God bless you. Go Fender. Go Martin.